2 hours ago, the White House declared war on academic freedom in the name of national security. President Trump signed an executive order imposing enhanced visa restrictions on foreign academics working in American universities, specifically targeting researchers from allied nations, including Canada. The order requires extensive security clearances for any non-American professor conducting research in artificial intelligence, quantum computing, biotechnology, or advanced material science. Processing times stretch to 18 months. Renewals become annual ordeals involving FBI interviews and institutional audits. The stated justification? Preventing technology transfer to strategic competitors. But the order does not target Chinese or Russian academics. It targets Canadians, Europeans, and allied nation researchers who form the backbone of American academic excellence. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent called it necessary protection of American intellectual property developed in American institutions. But this was not about security. This was about control. Trump wanted credit for protecting American innovation. What he actually did was trigger the largest exodus of academic talent from the United States since the McCarthy era. And the person who turned that exodus into a strategic masterpiece was Mark Carney. Within 90 minutes, he announced a program so comprehensive, so financially aggressive, and so perfectly designed to accelerate American brain drain that university presidents across the United States reportedly left emergency meetings saying, "We just lost a generation of researchers, and there is nothing we can offer to compete with what he just put on the table." Orders devastating scope. Let's be absolutely clear about what this executive order actually does to academic research. It does not enhance security. It destroys the collaborative environment that produces breakthrough science. American universities depend on international talent. 29% of all science and engineering professors at top American research institutions are foreign-born. For computer science and AI specifically, that number exceeds 40%. The order has 4 components. First, any foreign national conducting research in designated sensitive fields must obtain a special academic security clearance requiring FBI background checks, institutional audits, and annual renewals. Processing time ranges from 12 to 18 months. Researchers currently in the United States face immediate suspension of lab access until clearance is processed. Second, universities hosting foreign researchers in sensitive fields must establish compliance offices reporting directly to the Department of Homeland Security. Every research project, every publication, every international collaboration requires federal approval before proceeding. Third, foreign academics face restrictions on graduate student supervision. They cannot serve as primary advisors for doctoral candidates in sensitive fields without additional clearances. That effectively blocks them from the mentorship roles that define academic careers. Fourth, visa renewals shift from institutional sponsorship to individual federal review. Every year, professors must reapply through a process that assumes guilt until proven otherwise. For a Canadian AI researcher at MIT, this means career destruction. Labs close while waiting for clearances. PhD students transfer to American advisors. Research projects halt. International collaborations end because foreign institutions refuse to share data with researchers under surveillance. The choice becomes clear. Accept professional paralysis or leave. The White House expected universities to manage the transition quietly. They expected foreign academics to accept restrictions because American positions are prestigious and well paid. They expected this to fade into bureaucratic normalcy within months. They were catastrophically wrong. Washington's fatal miscalculation. The Trump administration fundamentally misunderstood what drives academic excellence. They assumed prestige and salary would keep talent in America despite hostile conditions. But academics are not motivated primarily by money or status. They are motivated by the ability to do meaningful research in collaborative environments without political interference. Washington assumed Canadian researchers would accept surveillance, restricted collaboration, and career uncertainty because leaving meant abandoning labs, students, and positions they had spent years building. They assumed universities would pressure faculty to comply rather than lose prestigious researchers. But that assumption ignored something critical. Canadian academics were not desperate for American positions. They held them because American universities recruited them aggressively with promises of academic freedom, research funding, and collaborative environments. The moment those promises disappeared, the positions lost value. And Carney understood exactly how to exploit that shift. Carney's academic recommitment masterpiece. Here is what Carney actually did. 90 minutes after the executive order went public, he convened a televised address from the University of Toronto. Standing beside him were the presidents of Canada's top 15 research universities, the British Minister for Universities, the German Federal Minister of Education and Research appearing via satellite, and 3 Nobel laureates who happened to be Canadian citizens currently working at American institutions. The visual was unmistakable. This was not Canada acting defensively. This was a coordinated academic recruitment offensive. Carney spoke for exactly 18 minutes. He opened with numbers that made every university president in America sit up in alarm. 18% of faculty at Harvard, MIT, and Stanford are Canadian citizens. 22% of AI researchers in American universities are Canadian trained. 31% of quantum computing publications from American institutions list Canadian researchers as primary authors. The executive order just signed does not protect American innovation. It attacks the people who create it. Then he announced the Canadian Academic Freedom Initiative, a program so comprehensive and so financially overwhelming that it immediately became the most aggressive academic recruitment effort in modern history. First, every Canadian academic currently working in the United States receives a standing offer of equivalent or better positions at Canadian universities with full salary matching, research funding, and relocation support. Not conditional offers, guaranteed positions. The funding was already allocated. University presidents were already authorized to extend contracts. Canadian academics could accept positions within 48 hours and begin working within 30 days. Second, Canada is establishing a $10 billion academic excellence fund specifically for recruiting international talent. The fund offers research grants, lab construction, graduate student funding, and spousal employment assistance. The goal is not just to bring Canadians home, but to attract the best researchers from anywhere in the world who value academic freedom over surveillance. Third, Canadian universities are joining a European academic alliance with the United Kingdom, Germany, France, and the Netherlands. Researchers moving to Canada gain automatic collaboration agreements with top European institutions, creating a transatlantic research network that bypasses American institutions entirely. Fourth, and this is the one that made American university administrators panic, Canada is launching the North American Brain Gain Visa. Any academic facing visa restrictions in the United States can apply for expedited Canadian permanent residency with fast-track processing, spousal work permits, and paths to citizenship. Processing time, 30 days. Carney closed with words aimed directly at American university leadership. Academic freedom is not a luxury. It is the foundation of discovery. Canada welcomes every researcher who believes science should be driven by curiosity, not suspicion. To the thousands of brilliant minds currently working under surveillance in American labs, Canada offers you something simple, the freedom to do your work. The Nobel laureates standing beside him had already accepted positions at Canadian universities. Their labs were closing at MIT, Stanford, and Caltech within 60 days. Yes, exodus begins. The response was immediate and devastating. Within 72 hours, over 2,400 Canadian academics working in the United States had contacted Canadian universities about positions. Within 2 weeks, 940 had accepted offers and submitted resignations to American institutions. Within 3 months, over 8,400 Canadian researchers, professors, and lab directors had left the United States for positions in Canada or Europe. But the damage went far beyond numbers. It was about who left and what they took with them. At MIT, the director of the Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence Laboratory was Canadian. She accepted a position at the University of Toronto with funding to bring her entire research team. The lab she left behind effectively shut down. 5 years of AI safety research ended because the institutional knowledge walked out the door. At Stanford, 3 of the top quantum computing researchers were Canadian. They moved to the University of Waterloo, taking with them graduate students, research methodologies, and ongoing collaborations with industry partners. Stanford's quantum program, ranked number 2 globally, dropped to 7th within a year. Harvard Medical School lost 6 senior researchers in cancer genomics, all Canadian. They relocated to McGill University in Montreal with funding packages that allowed them to triple their lab sizes. Harvard's oncology research rankings declined immediately. The brain drain was not limited to Canadians. Once the exodus started, researchers from other countries saw the writing on the wall. If the United States would impose surveillance on Canadians, no foreign academic was safe. European, Australian, and Japanese researchers began accepting positions in Canada or returning home. The Academic Freedom Initiative was not just recruiting Canadians. It was attracting global talent that no longer trusted American commitments to academic independence. One German physicist at Caltech told Nature magazine, "I came to America because it was the best place to do physics. Now it is the best place to be investigated while doing physics. Canada offers what America used to offer. So I left." The American University crisis. The response from American academic institutions was one of barely controlled panic. University presidents publicly condemned the executive order while privately calculating catastrophic losses in research capacity, graduate program rankings, and federal research funding. MIT's president released a statement calling the visa restrictions a direct assault on the collaborative environment essential to scientific progress. The statement noted that restricting foreign researchers would cost MIT an estimated $340 million in federal grants tied to specific labs and programs that could not continue without the faculty being forced out. Stanford's president was more blunt. "We recruit the best minds in the world to Stanford because excellence has no nationality. Treating our Canadian colleagues as security threats does not protect American innovation. It destroys it. Harvard convened an emergency faculty meeting where over 200 professors signed a letter demanding the administration publicly oppose the executive order and commit to protecting foreign faculty. The letter noted that 34% of Harvard's most cited researchers were foreign nationals, and losing them would be an institutional catastrophe. But condemnation could not solve the fundamental problem. Universities could not match what Canada was offering. Canadian positions came with guaranteed research funding, no surveillance, academic freedom protections, and faster paths to permanent residency. American universities could offer prestige, but prestige without freedom was just reputation, and reputation was not enough to keep researchers who valued their work over their titles. The federal research funding system compounded the crisis. Major grants from the National Science Foundation, the National Institutes of Health, and the Department of Energy are tied to specific principal investigators. When those investigators leave, the grants often terminate or require renegotiation. As Canadian researchers departed, they took approximately $1.8 billion in active federal research funding with them. Universities faced not just talent loss, but immediate budget crises. Silicon Valley Innovation Collapse. The damage extended beyond universities into the technology sector. Silicon Valley depends on a pipeline of talent flowing from American research institutions. When those institutions lose their top researchers, the pipeline dries up. But the brain drain hit tech companies even more directly. Many AI researchers hold joint appointments splitting time between universities and companies like Google, Meta, and OpenAI. When the visa restrictions forced them to choose, many chose Canada. OpenAI lost 3 of its top safety researchers to the Vector Institute in Toronto. Google's DeepMind division in Mountain View saw 4 senior scientists relocate to the newly expanded DeepMind Canada office in Edmonton. Startups suffered worst of all. Venture capital flows to talent. When talent leaves, investment follows. Canadian AI startups, already competitive, suddenly had access to world-class researchers who could no longer work in the United States. One AI startup founder told TechCrunch, "I spent 2 years in San Francisco trying to raise funding and recruit researchers. I moved to Toronto 6 months ago. I have more researchers than I can hire and VCs calling me." The entire ecosystem shifted because the talent shifted. Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver became AI research hubs not through decades of investment, but through a single policy decision in Washington that made America hostile to the researchers who drive innovation. The international academic response. The global academic community reacted with alarm and coordination. The United Kingdom announced the global talent visa expansion, specifically targeting researchers leaving the United States. Processing time dropped to 2 weeks for academics with offers from British universities. Germany's Alexander von Humboldt Foundation, which funds international research fellowships, redirected resources toward recruiting scholars displaced by American visa policies. France's CNRS Research Organization announced emergency funding for labs willing to absorb research teams leaving American institutions. The European University Association released a statement that was diplomatically worded but unmistakably critical. Academic collaboration depends on mutual respect and trust. Policies that treat allied nation researchers as security threats undermine the foundation of international science. Even Australia, traditionally cautious about criticizing American policy, launched a recruitment campaign targeting academics affected by U.S. visa restrictions. Universities in Sydney and Melbourne reported record applications from researchers seeking alternatives to American institutions. The message was clear. The global academic community was actively facilitating an exodus from the United States and building alternative networks designed to function without American participation. Trump's impossible choice. So where does this leave the White House? 3 options, all catastrophic for American innovation. Option 1, maintain the visa restrictions and watch American academic dominance collapse. Research labs close. Graduate programs lose rankings. Federal funding dries up. Silicon Valley's talent pipeline breaks. And every breakthrough in AI, quantum computing, and biotechnology happens in Toronto, London, or Berlin instead of Cambridge, Palo Alto, or Boston. Option 2, quietly rescind the order and attempt damage control. That admits the policy was a disaster and signals to every researcher who already left that American commitments are unreliable. Trust, once broken, does not return quickly. Many who left will not come back even if restrictions lift. Option 3. Escalate with additional restrictions or pressure on Canada and Europe. That accelerates the academic exodus, pushes more countries into building alternative research networks, and permanently positions the United States as hostile to international collaboration. None of these options recover what was lost. The researchers are gone. The labs are closed. The grants are terminated. And the global academic community learned that American institutions, however prestigious, are vulnerable to political interference that treats allied researchers as threats. A deeper strategic catastrophe. What should genuinely terrify American policymakers is that Canada did not improvise this response. The Academic Freedom Initiative was designed months in advance. University positions were pre-approved. Funding was already allocated. The European partnerships were negotiated quietly over 6 months. Canada saw this coming. They knew American political rhetoric was turning against foreign academics. They prepared a comprehensive program to capitalize on that hostility by offering exactly what American institutions could no longer guarantee: academic freedom, research funding, and respect. One Canadian university president told the Globe and Mail, "We have been recruiting globally for years, but we could never compete with American salaries and prestige. The moment Washington made American institutions hostile environments, prestige lost value. Suddenly we could compete. We just needed funding and coordination." Carney provided both. 2 hours ago, the White House thought it was protecting American intellectual property from technology transfer. 2 hours later, it triggered the largest coordinated transfer of research talent, institutional knowledge, and innovation capacity from the United States to allied nations in modern history. Trump wanted to secure American technological leadership. He got a brain drain that will take decades to reverse. He wanted to protect American innovation. He proved that innovation depends on people, not borders, and people go where they are valued. He wanted to demonstrate strength. He demonstrated that treating the world's best researchers as security threats produces exactly one outcome: they leave. Mark Carney did not fight the visa restrictions. He built an alternative ecosystem and invited everyone to join, and they did, by the thousands, taking their research, their students, their grants, and their breakthroughs with them. Washington wanted security. It got academic isolation, collapsed research programs, and a future where the innovations that define the next century happen anywhere